Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to Just Human. And this is the show where we focus on our shared humanity and where being human comes first. And I'm your host, Jay Boykin. So glad that you are here. I want to ask you something. Have you ever had one of those days where it just feels like you are on the verge of boiling over, on the verge of exploding? Maybe you're at work and your inbox is filling up faster than you can even respond. Your phone won't stop buzzing. Your calendar has just got wall-to-wall meetings. Everything is stacked up. I'll be honest with you. I came close. I can remember an episode back when I was still working for my other company. I can remember almost sending an all-caps email to my entire team just because the printer jammed up and we were up against a deadline. True story, not my finest hour, but if I'm being real, sometimes I lose my cool at home over something equally as small, like the dreaded, what do you want to do for dinner question? I don't know how many marriages have potentially ended over that question, but look, I'm not proud of it. It happens, but it just proves the point that stress and pressure, they don't care if you are in your nice dress clothes at the office or if you are in your sweatpants and you're at the kitchen table. It's going to follow us everywhere because at the end of the day, we're all just human. And that's what today's episode is all about. It's about those pressure cooker moments. And what do you do when the heat is on and you feel like you're about to lose it? You're about to blow your top. How do you keep your cool? And how do you actually communicate clearly, whether it is with your boss, your partner, your kids, when every part of your brain is just screaming Hulk smash? So we're going to dig into why our brains short circuit under pressure, how to recognize those knee-jerk reactions before they actually take over. And we're going to talk about a tool, a really simple one that I like that's called Pause, Ask, Clarify, and how that can make all the difference in the world in those heated moments. And then I'm going to talk to you about a really cool mindset shift from a book that I am still reading. It's a great book called Let Them by Mel Robbins, and it is her body of work based on the Let Them theory. This is basically your permission slip to stop letting stop trying to control everyone else, whether it is that coworker who won't respond to your emails, the neighbor with the barking dog, or your teenager who's rolling their eyes at you. Trust me, this book and this theory is a game changer for your peace of mind. Grab your coffee or whatever helps to keep you grounded in this moment. Let's take a deep breath. Go ahead, inhale, exhale, and let's just step into that pressure cooker together without getting burned. And we're going to talk about how we can handle these moments and embrace our shared humanity. What actually happens to us in those high stress moments? So picture this. You've got a deadline that's looming. Your boss is pinging you for updates. Your phone isn't going to ever stop buzzing. And then you get a coworker who sends you an email response back with just one line. It says, okay. That's it. And your brain just immediately goes to, they must be upset. They hate me, or I'm in trouble. This is it. I'm about to get fired over a simple okay. Why do we do that? Why do our brains jump to the worst case scenarios over two little letters? Here's what's happening. It's something that psychologists call fundamental attribution error. And it's just a fancy way of assuming that other people's behavior comes from their character, like they're rude or they're careless, instead of thinking that maybe it's just part of the situation and they're juggling 10 things too. Here's another example that we can all likely relate to. You're driving down the highway, somebody cuts you off, and our typical assumption is that person is a jerk and they are careless and they don't care about the safety of other people. But now you flip the script and we do it, and well, they were in my blind spot. It was an accident. I'm really in a hurry. I'm late for a meeting. We tend to assume the worst in other people in those situations, and we tend to give ourselves a bunch of grace. So that's what we call fundamental attribution error. Now, you layer on top of that our built-in negativity bias, and that is our brain's habit of paying way more attention to the negative stuff than the positive stuff. And then suddenly we are inventing entire stories that are completely not true. We forget the 9 other really nice emails that we got from this one person, and we obsess over the one that feels really cold and really rude. It's like the caveman wiring in our brain. You know, our brain would see a stick in the grass, and it's going to assume that it's a snake as opposed to missing out on the fact that it's real danger. This comes from something that's called amygdala hijack. Now, our amygdala is a little almond-shaped structure in our brains. It controls that emotional part of our brain. It's like our lizard brain, is sometimes it gets referred to. The caveman days, that's the thing that kept us from being eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. You know, it is the flight, fight, or freeze instincts that happen. And so when that emotional part of our brain takes over, you know, we slam on the panic button, and that completely takes over our bodies, and all of the logical thinking that takes place in our prefrontal cortex, that gets shoved into the trunk, and our body floods with stress hormones. Your heart starts to race, and you are really primed to fight, flee, or freeze. And so today, what sometimes happens is that we will have outbursts, impulsive replies, and sometimes just really regrettable decisions. That email that you wish that you hadn't sent, that comment that you wish that you could take back as soon as it comes out of your mouth. It is basically your inner Hulk showing up at the absolute worst time, and it's just smashing keyboards instead of trying to save the world. And communication is totally out of the window when we are in amygdala hijack. Just forget about it. You don't hear tone correctly, you misread body language, and you completely miss timing cues. Someone's silence doesn't necessarily mean that they are rejecting you. They could just be thinking about it. That delayed response isn't that they're ignoring you, but our brains fill in the blanks with all of this drama. But here's the thing, though. This doesn't mean, when this happens to you, this doesn't mean that you're broken. It just means that you're human. And every single one of us has those stress responses. Even the people who look cool and collected on the outside, they struggle with it as well. I don't care how many Super Bowls Tom Brady has. I don't care how calm, cool, and collected he looked in the pocket. There were times that his stress would rise up and his amygdala would get hijacked as well. So sorry, Tom. I know that you're a human being as well. Here's the key takeaway. Being aware of this is part of the power. You are not always going to be able to stop your brain from flipping the stress switch, but you can notice it. You can recognize it when you're in it. And so step 1 is catching yourself and saying, okay, I'm in Hulk mode right now, and my brain is giving me signals and writing a story that may not be true. And here's the good news, is that very act of noticing, that brief pause, is starting to give you back some of your control, and you move from being in the middle of that storm to now you're observing it. So that's the first step in showing up with professionalism and composure instead of panic. Now, I do want to mention that something that I've used it at work for many, many years, and I am also a licensed insights discovery practitioner. And if you are not familiar with insights discovery, it is a framework that uses 4 color energies: fiery red, sunshine yellow, earth green, and cool blue to help us understand ourselves as well as other people. And it's not about putting people in boxes, but about recognizing the tendencies that we lean on, especially under pressure. And so just as a quick snapshot, you might have fiery red folks who like action, they like results, but under stress, they can get impatient or very blunt. They want to push through at all costs. You have those that lead with sunshine yellow. They are full of energy and ideas, but when the pressure hits, they can scatter and even come across as a little dramatic at times. Our folks who have earth green energy, they value harmony. They care about what everybody thinks. And in the heat of the moment, they might back off. They might withdraw and go quiet just to avoid conflict, which other people, the rest of us, might read it as they're being indifferent. And then you've got the folks who lead with cool blue energy. This is myself. We love accuracy and detail, but stress might push us to paralysis by analysis. We are nitpicking every little thing, or we're just going silent until everything is figured out. Everything is just right. So you see what happens under pressure. We all have a style, and sometimes other people can misinterpret it. A person who's leading with fiery red energy, they're not being rude. They're just trying to push forward and get something to the finish line. And here's how this ties back to just human. Once you understand this, you realize that nobody's perfect. Everybody's not your enemy. People are just human, same as you. And when the stress gets to us, it starts to squeeze us. What comes out can sometimes look a little messy. But if we can notice our own triggers and give others some grace with their triggers, then we stand a much better chance of keeping our cool and communicating with respect. Now, when our brain is in Hulk mode, what do? There's really a number one tool, and it's a not so secret weapon that we can use. It's just a pause. When you are feeling that surge, your heart is racing, your jaw's tightening up, your fingers are just itching to, grab something, you want to say something really sarcastic and snarky, you've just got to put a pause, a speed bump between your initial reaction and your response. Just stop. Don't do anything. And here's the good news. The world is not going to stop because it took you 5 minutes longer to respond. Took 5 minutes longer to respond. This doesn't mean that you're ignoring the problem. It just means that you're giving yourself a beat to calm your nervous system. And that's where the breath comes in. Seriously, just take a breath and pause for a second, and you're going to feel better almost immediately. Now, look, I'm not trying to be your yoga instructor. I like yoga, but I definitely can't teach it. This is really about science. That deep, slow breath sends a signal straight to your nervous system to get out of amygdala hijack. It lets your body know that you're not in danger. We're safe. There's no need to fight. There's no need to run. There's no need to freeze. It's literally giving your brain permission to just hand the keys back to your prefrontal cortex, to the logical and rational part of your brain. And then comes one of my favorite parts, is just to name it. It sounds silly, but when you're going through something, when you're feeling some emotions, label it, admit it. Hey, I'm angry. And this is really admitting it to yourself. Just say, look, I'm angry. I'm overwhelmed. I'm really nervous right now that I'm going to blow this presentation. Just by shining that light on it, you're doing a big thing. Our emotions, they don't always like the spotlight. And once you name it, so you take that pause and then you name what you're feeling, suddenly you're starting to get out of those emotions. You're starting to calm down a little bit. And then, if need be, the third thing that you can do is just step away. Physically, if possible, just get a glass of water, walk around the block. If you're in back-to-back Zoom calls, turn off your camera and just stand up and stretch for a minute. Even just swiveling your chair around and looking out of the window if you have one where you are, that can create the distance that you need to sort of separate from the moment. And here's why this matters. Those few seconds, that pause, that breathing, that naming it and stepping away if you need to, that might take you a couple minutes, a few minutes, but it can save you hours or even days of regret. Because if you send off that passive aggressive reply to that email, you're going to end up having to backtrack on that and apologizing and trying to recover from that for a while. And so with these tools in place, you move from reacting to responding. It's like the pause is almost like your reset button. And think about how this can even play at home. If you just take a moment when you get that, what do you want to have for dinner? Instead of blurting out, I don't know, you decide. If you just pause and give yourself a moment, and now you can say something along the lines of, I'm not really sure, but let's think about it together. We don't have to let our worst impulses take things over. Now, once you've hit the pause button, you've calmed down a bit. The next big question is, how do you communicate in a way that doesn't make things worse? Because again, whether you are at work or at home, we've all had those moments where we thought we were helping. We thought that we were saying something that wasn't that bad. What actually came out of our mouths actually made the situation worse. One sharp comment, one long sigh, one bad tone, and suddenly you've got a bigger argument. You've turned it into a 5-alarm fire. And what's funny is that I have to make fun of my brother. My brother is the king of the drama sigh. Most of the time he's doing it just to be funny, but there is no one on the planet who is better at and I call it his drama sigh. And I know he's going to listen, and I know that he's going to laugh and comment. But now when you are ready to communicate, this is where my favorite tool comes in that I mentioned at the top. It's the pause, ask, clarify. It's a 3-step process. Now, we've talked about this already. First is pause, but it bears repeating. When you feel that first reaction bubbling up, when you feel that you're in that place, you got to pause. It might mean waiting a few minutes before you hit send on that email that you drafted up. At home, it might mean taking a deep breath, not a drama sigh, but a deep breath before you snap at your kids or you yell at your partner. If you let that first reaction fly, you're really not helping the situation. You're pouring gas on the fire. Step 2, after you pause, is to ask. And here's the key. It's asking with curiosity, not accusation. Curiosity opens the door up. Accusation slams it shut. So at work, instead of saying something like, why didn't you just do your job? You could try something along the lines of, hey, I noticed that this report is missing some data. Did something change that I didn't know about? At home, instead of saying, why are you always on your phone? You could try, hey, what's got you so focused right now? Same situation, but a completely different tone, and it's going to change everything. One is going to put the other person into a defensive mode, and the other one really invites them in to talk. And here's a pro tip. Shift away from why questions because they sound like you're blaming, and try questions that start with what or how. You can try what happened or how can we fix this? And this is going to keep your conversation going forward instead of getting stuck in an argument. And then step 3 is to clarify. Most conflicts, whether they are at work or at home, they're not about bad intent. They're about miscommunication. Most people don't wake up with the thought of whose day can I ruin today? But we can have something that comes across that it's miscommunicated. So clarifying means that you are repeating back what you think that you heard. At work, you could say, so just to be clear, you said you're going to have the numbers tomorrow, right? At home, it could be, so you're saying that you already finished your homework. You're just going to do the dishes later. Granted, you might still have to negotiate what the outcome is, but you're starting from a healthier place as opposed to a place of confrontation. There's also 3 things that you need to keep in mind when you're doing this, when you're doing the pause, ask, clarify. Your tone matters. Your words, they carry weight, but the tone carries the meaning. So, you swap out, you mess this up to let's figure this out. The other thing that you need to focus on, and this one is really big, is practicing active listening. I mean, really, really generous listening. Don't just wait and sit there quietly thinking about what you want to say when it's your turn to talk. It's literally focusing in on what the person is saying, paying attention to their body language, their tone, all of the signals. It could mean paraphrasing back what you hear them say. And finally, validating feelings. You don't have to agree with what the other person is saying to acknowledge the fact that they feel the way that they do. At work, you could say, hey, I understand that this is frustrating. At home, you could say, I see that you're upset that I asked you to pause your game or do the dishes, cut the grass. Sometimes just a little bit of validation, just letting that other person know that you see them, you recognize that they're feeling something, and you're validating the fact that those feelings are real. Again, it doesn't mean that you have to agree with them, but it's okay to validate that you recognize those feelings. Think about a time when somebody that you know really impressed you with their composure under pressure. Maybe it was someone at work who stayed really calm when there was a deadline looming. Maybe your spouse or your partner did not snap back in the middle of an argument, and they stayed very calm and rational. Chances are they probably paused, they asked questions with curiosity, and they clarified what they heard, and they stayed respectful the entire time. When we take the time to respond this way, we're not just managing that moment. We are really honoring each other as human beings. Again, we're saying, look, I see you, I hear you, and I am not reducing your feelings and who you are in one stressful moment. We're not going to redefine what I think about you because of one bad moment. We all have those moments. And so whether it is at the office or sitting around the dinner table, that shift can really keep us connected. Even when things are hot, we can stay connected. So I want to zoom out for a second because it's really great to think about ways that we can manage a stressful moment. But when we can figure out a way to be consistent with this, when you can do this consistently, that's where the magic really happens. The way that you handle pressure day in and day out, this starts to define your reputation and your personal brand, how people see you. And going back to work, you don't need a big title to be seen as a leader. People really pay attention to the individual who stays calm when everybody else is spiraling out of control. And so again, whether it is in a boardroom or if you've got a project that is falling apart, or if we shift back to home, it can be in your kitchen and dinner's burning and your kids are freaking out. This is emotional intelligence in action. And it's not about being perfect or unshakable. It's just about knowing yourself. It's about 3 simple things. It's about, number 1, self-awareness. Know what your triggers are, owning your own mistakes. At work, it could look like, hey, I snapped in that meeting and that's on me. I'm sorry. At home, it could be, I lost my patience earlier. I'm really sorry about that. Owning it doesn't make you weak. It just makes you trustworthy. It increases your reputation. Emotional intelligence also includes empathy. Empathy is when we remember that the other person might be going through some stuff as well. That coworker who was short with you in the hallway, who replied back with the okay in the email, maybe they've got 3 deadlines that are looming over their head. Your kid who's slamming their bedroom door, maybe they just had a really rough day at school. Now, look, empathy doesn't excuse bad behavior, but it does give us a moment to respond as opposed to reacting. And then finally, creating some boundaries. Creating these boundaries can mean that you can say no without guilt. At work, it could be, telling your boss, I really want to work on this project that you just gave me, but I don't know that I can take it on today. Can we look at how we can reprioritize things? At home, it could be, I really need 20 minutes, and then I can give you my undivided attention so that we can talk about this. Boundaries help to protect your energy, and it also protects the relationship. It keeps you from lashing out and reacting in a way that you really wouldn't want to if you weren't stressed out. And here's where Mel Robbins Let Them theory comes in. Again, great book. Pick it up. I feel like it's still changing the game for me. I'm still implementing this, but the idea is really simple. Stop trying to control other people and just let them. Your colleague disagrees with something that you've got going on at work. Let them. Your boss doesn't notice that extra effort that you put in. Let them. At home, if your spouse loads the dishwasher differently than you do, let them. Your neighbor wants to keep parking in the wrong spot, let them. Here's the simple truth. You cannot control other people's behavior. You can only control how you respond to it. When we stop wasting all this energy, and trust me, Mel Robbins, thank you very much for your book. When we stop wasting all of that energy trying to manage other people's moods, other people's habits, other people's opinions, you start to get a lot of your peace back in your life. I used to bend over backwards trying to figure out how to keep everyone happy and stressing out over things when everyone wasn't comfortable. I'm thinking that I've let them down in some form or fashion. I would even let it impact how I felt about myself. It was absolutely exhausting. But with the let them theory, it gives me permission to just stop trying to fix everything. Stop trying to control everything and focus on what I can truly manage, me. So instead of focusing on the other person, let them. And then in that same situation, think about the let me. What can I do to make this situation better? And so when you combine emotional intelligence with let them, now you become this calm and grounded person that other people can count on. The one who doesn't get caught up into every bit of drama and every meltdown, everything that comes along. At work, people are going to see you as professional and steady and trustworthy. And at home, you are present and patient and safe. And again, it's professionalism under pressure. It's not about perfection. It's not about control, but being human and showing grace and keeping your peace no matter what's going on around you. So I've been going on for a while. I want to land this plane here. One of the biggest lessons that we've talked about for handling pressure, whether we're talking about at home or at work, is just taking a moment and pausing. That is just one of the biggest keys, is just take a beat. So as we recap some of these other things, first, remember that your brain loves to play tricks on you. It's that amygdala hijack. It could be assuming the worst in everything, that your boss's short email means that they're mad, or that you're reading way too much into your spouse's silence. Again, pause, take a breath. It puts you back in control, and it keeps you from sending that career limiting email at work. Third is communication tools like pause, ask, clarify. And it really can turn a potential conflict into cooperation. So, instead of those why questions, you can turn it into a what or a how, whether you're at work or at home. And finally, play the long game with this. Really understand more about your emotional intelligence, how you can be more self-aware, understand what your triggers are, and then pick up Mel Robbins' book and let them. When your coworker has that strong opinion, let them. Here's another reminder. Anybody can be polite on a good day, but it's how you handle the pressure on those tough days when everything seems to be piling on. When you can handle that well, instead of wanting to scream and throw the printer out of the window when it jams, choosing to stay calm and figuring out that situation is going to work much better for you. Now, don't forget this. We're all going to slip up from time to time. No matter how much you practice this, how good you become at this, you're going to have some moments where you're going to mess up. You're still going to raise your voice when you wish that you hadn't. You're going to hit send on an email that you wish that you didn't. That doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human. The difference is that now that you've got the tools in your pocket, you can evaluate how you can handle that situation differently next time. So remember, pause, breathe, ask, clarify, empathize, and let them. I love all of these. Oh, and by the way, during this episode, I know that I've referenced the Hulk 3 or 4 times. I know that I've talked about Mel Robbins and her let them theory the same number of times. If Marvel Studios or Mel herself, if you happen to be listening to Just Human, this podcast is officially open for some sponsorship, and I'll happily take payment in, Avengers merch or even some free mindset coaching. Just saying. So before we go, here's a little bonus thought, a little reminder. I am a licensed insights discovery practitioner. And the one thing that I've truly learned and that I love about this framework is that we all have different natural styles, and how we respond in stressful situations can be very different from person to person. Yours isn't the only way. And recognizing these differences and how other people may respond and react in these situations, it's going to be amazing. It's going to help you to extend grace to others and to yourself when that pressure hits. So give it a try. Feel free to reach out if you are watching this on YouTube. Thank you. Maybe you'll hit the subscribe button. I appreciate the fact that you tuned in. If you are listening to this on your favorite podcast provider, once again, I appreciate you. Leave me some comments and let me know what you think. What are the things that really trigger you? These things that we talked about today, give it a try. When we learn to put some of these things, implement some of these things in our life, it is going to be amazing the difference that it makes, not only for our coworkers, our friends, but our families. We just become better human beings. So until next time, take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. I'm Jay Boykin, and this was Just Human.